My dad left me at the airport when I was 15 to go on a great vacation with his new wife and her kids. So, my mom and I did everything we could to ensure that he and her family faced the consequences. And now, they are begging us not to sue them. My name is Tam, and I'm 15 now. Looking back at everything that's happened, it's hard to believe how much my life has changed in just 2 years. I guess that's what happens when your whole world gets turned upside down, twice. It all started when I was 13. My parents got divorced, and Dad got to keep our house. I stayed with him, of course. Mom agreed to pay a lot in alimony. I overheard Dad bragging about it on the phone once, saying she'd finally gotten what she deserved. "Why did you and Mom split up?" I asked Dad countless times in those first few months. But he'd just shake his head and give me the same answer. "Your mother made her choice, Tam," he'd say, his voice hard and cold. "She doesn't want to be part of our lives anymore. She doesn't want to see you. It's better if you just accept that." But how could I accept something that made no sense? My mom, who used to call me her little scientist and spend hours helping me with my homework, how could she just stop wanting to be my mother? It hurt so much that sometimes I couldn't breathe thinking about it. Then the emails started coming. Every holiday, like clockwork, I'd get an anonymous message. Nothing fancy, just simple words of love and encouragement. The first time I saw one, my heart nearly stopped. I knew it had to be from Mom. Who else would write? "Keep reaching for the stars, sweetheart," the same thing she used to say every night before bed. I never told Dad about the emails. I couldn't. Just mentioning Mom's name would make his face twist up like he'd tasted something bitter. After the divorce, Dad quit his job. He said he needed time to heal, but I'm not stupid. Mom's alimony checks were more than enough to keep us comfortable. He spent his days redecorating the house and going to yoga classes, saying he was finding himself. Then Macy came into the picture. Dad said he met her at one of his yoga classes, and suddenly our house was filled with talk about new beginnings and blended families. Before I knew what was happening, Macy and her kids, Rocco, who's 13, and Carmen, who's 11, had moved in with us. That's when everything really changed. Dad turned into this completely different person, fawning over Rocco and Carmen like they were precious china dolls that might break. He'd spend hours helping Carmen with her hair and making Rocco's favorite meals, while I sat at the kitchen table feeling like a ghost in my own home. "Dad," I said one day, when I couldn't take it anymore, "it's like you've forgotten I exist." He looked at me with this expression I'd never seen before, part pity, part annoyance. "Don't be selfish, Tam. Rocco and Carmen lost their father when they were just babies. They need extra attention and care. You should understand that, you're old enough now." Dad became obsessed with taking family photos. Every weekend, he'd dress us up like we were going to a fashion show, coordinating our outfits down to the smallest detail. Rocco and Carmen would get new clothes for these occasions, while I'd have to make do with whatever was in my closet that matched their color scheme. "Tam, stand behind Rocco, no, move to the left, try to smile more naturally," Dad would direct, adjusting his phone camera for the perfect angle. "Carmen, sweetie, tilt your head just a bit. Perfect." These photo shoots would go on for hours sometimes. Click after click, pose after pose, until Dad got exactly what he wanted for his social media feed. The worst part came afterward, when he'd show off the results at every family gathering. "Look at how many likes this one got," he'd gush to Uncle Warren or Aunt Pete. "Everyone says we look like the perfect family. Don't the kids look amazing together?" You'd never guess they weren't always siblings. I'd stand there, feeling like a prop in someone else's play, while Dad bragged about our beautiful blended family to anyone who would listen. The photos never showed the reality, how Carmen would roll her eyes whenever I entered a room, or how Rocco acted like I didn't exist. The hardest part wasn't the fake smiles or the endless posing. It was being cut off from Grandpa Gray, my mom's father. After the divorce, Dad made it clear that visiting him was out of the question. I missed Grandpa's warm hugs and the way he'd listen to me for hours, really listen, not just pretend to while scrolling through his phone. Now all I had were memories of baking cookies in his kitchen and the sound of his laugh. Instead, I was stuck with Dad's relatives, who bought into his perfect family narrative, hook, line, and sinker. They'd coo over Rocco and Carmen, praising Dad for being such an amazing stepfather while I sat in the corner, wondering if I'd become invisible. As months passed, the distance between Dad and me grew wider than the Grand Canyon. He lived and breathed his new family, planning everything around Rocco and Carmen's schedules and preferences. "Weekend plans? Carmen, honey, where should we go for lunch?" My opinion didn't matter anymore. I'd sit there during family discussions, watching Dad lean in eagerly to hear what restaurant Carmen wanted to try or which movie Rocco was interested in seeing. Sometimes I'd open my mouth to make a suggestion, but Dad would already be grabbing his keys, excited about Rocco's choice of the new superhero film or Carmen's pick of the fancy ice cream place across town. One Sunday morning, as they were all getting ready for another family outing, I stayed in my room. Nobody came to ask why. Nobody tried to convince me to join them. I could hear Carmen's voice through my door, saying, "Good, now we don't have to pretend to include her." Dad's response? Silence. Summer arrived with the kind of announcement that used to make me excited as a kid. Dad and Macy gathered everyone in the living room one evening, practically buzzing with enthusiasm. "We have amazing news," Dad announced, clasping Macy's hand. "We're planning a month-long trip to Europe." Rocco and Carmen immediately erupted in cheers. "Can we go to Paris?" Carmen squealed. "I want to see the Eiffel Tower." "And Barcelona," Rocco chimed in. "They have the best soccer stadium in the world." I sat there on the couch, watching them bounce around the room like lottery winners. Nobody looked in my direction. Nobody asked what I thought about spending a month in Europe. It was like I was watching a TV show about a happy family, what I wasn't part of. The morning of the trip started early. I was in my room, double-checking my packing list, when I heard something. Looking up, I saw Carmen standing by my dresser, holding my favorite blue swimsuit in one hand and a pair of scissors in the other. She was systematically cutting through the fabric. A small smile playing on her lips. For a moment, I just stood there, frozen. I knew Carmen didn't like me, she'd made that clear enough over the past 2 years. But this? This was different. This was cruel. I lunged forward, trying to grab the scissors from her hand. Give me those. Carmen yanked back, and suddenly we were wrestling over the scissors. She was smaller than me, but surprisingly strong. As we struggled, she started screaming at the top of her lungs. Help, Tam's attacking me. The thunder of footsteps came pounding up the stairs. Dad and Macy burst into my room, finding us both red-faced and disheveled, the mangled swimsuit lying between us on the floor. She tried to hurt me, Carmen wailed, immediately running to her mother. I was just standing here, and she went crazy. That's not true, I protested. She was cutting up my swimsuit. I was trying to stop her. Dad barely glanced at the ruined swimsuit on the floor. What is wrong with you, Tam? Are you really so jealous of Carmen that you'd physically attack her? Go to your room and stay there until we leave for the airport. Clearly, you can't be trusted around Carmen. They left, taking Carmen with them. Through my closed door, I could hear Dad comforting her. Don't worry, sweetie. We'll go to the mall right now and buy you some new clothes to help you feel better after this awful experience. I sat on my bed, staring at the pieces of my ruined swimsuit, listening to them leave for their shopping trip. Nobody bothered to ask if I needed a new swimsuit for the vacation. Nobody cared that I was telling the truth. Evening came and we all gathered in the foyer with our luggage. Dad was checking his list one final time while Macy loaded bags into the waiting taxi. I still think you don't deserve this trip after what you did to Carmen, Dad said, giving me a cold look. But we can't leave you home alone for a month, so you'll have to come. Just, try not to cause any more problems. Inside the airport, everything felt overwhelming. We made our way to the check-in desk, where Dad handed over all our documents. My stomach was doing nervous flips, maybe from the early morning, maybe from the tension, or maybe from something else I couldn't quite name. Dad, I said, shifting uncomfortably, I need to use the bathroom. He barely looked at me as he rummaged through his oversized bag. Fine, but hurry up. We can't miss our flight because of you. Should I take my bag? I asked, gesturing to my carry-on. Just leave it, he snapped. I'm not having you wander off with our documents and money. I nodded and headed toward the restroom signs, trying to navigate through the crowds. It took me longer than expected to find the bathroom, the signs were confusing, and I had to double back twice. By the time I finally found it and finished, probably 10 minutes had passed. But when I returned to the check-in area, my family was gone. At first, I thought I must have gone to the wrong counter. People turned to look at me, but none of them were my family. I started running, my feet slapping against the shiny airport floor as I searched desperately. Maybe they'd gone through security already? But how could I follow? Dad had all my documents in his bag. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. I had no phone, it was in my bag. No money, Dad had that too. No ID, no boarding pass, nothing. I ran back to the check-in area, then to the bathrooms again, then to the food court. Time seemed to blur as I searched frantically, my panic growing with each passing minute. People streamed past me, dragging their suitcases, hugging their families goodbye, living their normal lives while my world was falling apart. Finally, after what felt like hours but was probably just one, I couldn't run anymore. I stood in the middle of the terminal, surrounded by strangers, and burst into tears. Not quiet, dignified tears, but huge, gasping sobs that shook my whole body. Are you all right, son? A gentle voice broke through my crying. I looked up to see a man in an airport uniform, his face creased with concern. Where are your parents? I tried to explain through my tears, the words coming out in broken gasps. They left. I just went to the bathroom, they had all my things. The man's face changed as he understood what I was saying. He put an arm around my shoulders and led me through a door Macy'd airport personnel only. Before I knew it, I was sitting in a small office while serious-looking people in security uniforms asked me questions and made phone calls. They reviewed the security footage, their faces growing grimmer as they watched. One of them was taking notes, writing up an official police report. It's confirmed. I heard one officer say to another. They checked in, waited until she was gone, then proceeded to their gate and boarded their flight. They've already taken off. Is there anyone we can call for you? One of the police officers asked, her voice gentler now. Any adult relatives who could come get you? I wiped my eyes with the tissue they'd given me. My mom, I said quietly, I haven't seen her in 2 years, but I know her name and where she used to work. They took down the information, and I heard them making calls in the next room. I sat there, wrapped in a borrowed airport blanket, trying not to think about the plane that was probably already over the Atlantic, carrying my father and his real family away from me. Tam, a familiar voice made me look up, and suddenly I couldn't breathe. Mom stood in the doorway, looking exactly like I remembered, but somehow different too. Her hair had more gray in it, and she seemed tired, but her eyes. They were the same eyes that used to check for monsters under my bed and light up when I showed her my science fair projects. "Mom," my voice cracked, and then I was running, and she was catching me in her arms like I was 7 years old again, and we were both crying. "I'm so sorry, sweetheart," she kept saying. "I'm so sorry." The drive to her place was surreal. I sat in the passenger seat of her car, stealing glances at her, afraid she might disappear if I looked away too long. She lived in a different part of the city now, in a large apartment building I'd never seen before. "There's someone I want you to meet," she said as we rode the elevator to the 8th floor. "My fiancé, Larry. He's been my rock through everything." Larry turned out to be a warm-faced man with curly red hair who took one look at me and wrapped me in a hug like he'd known me all my life. "You poor thing," he said, leading me to the kitchen. "You must be starving. I'm making you a proper meal right now, no arguments." While Larry busied himself with cooking, Mom and I sat at the kitchen table. The familiar smell of coffee filled the air. She still drank it the same way, black with just a touch of sugar. "Cam," she said finally, her hands wrapped around her coffee mug. "That day, I came home early from work. I wasn't supposed to be there, but a meeting had been cancelled." Her voice was steady, but I could see her hands shaking slightly. "I found your father in our living room with Macy. They weren't just talking. I felt my stomach clench as I understood what she meant. When I confronted them, Macy tried to act tough. We got into a fight, not my proudest moment. Your father tried to get between us, and one of us, I'm still not sure who, accidentally pushed him as we were struggling. He fell and hit the coffee table pretty hard." Mom's voice caught. There was blood on his face from where he'd hit it, and his hands were all scraped up. I tried to help him, but before I could, he looked right at me and said if I didn't do exactly what he wanted, he'd go to the police. He said he'd tell them I'd beat him, that he had the bruises to prove it. He said I'd go to jail, and I'd never see you again. She looked at me, her eyes full of pain. He gave me his terms: divorce, the house, alimony, and I had to stay away from you. Completely away. He said if I tried to contact you or tell you the truth, he'd follow through on his threat. The next morning, I was sitting at the kitchen counter, picking at my breakfast, when Larry sat down next to me with a determined look on his face. "Cam," he said, stirring his coffee thoughtfully. "My sister Michelle is a family law attorney. She's really good at what she does, and I think she can help us with your situation." Mom looked up from her newspaper, hope flickering across her face. "You think she'd take the case?" "Are you kidding?" Larry pulled out his phone. "When I told her what happened at the airport, she was ready to come over right then and there. She's just waiting for us to give her the go-ahead." Everything moved quickly after that. Michelle turned out to be a tall woman with Larry's same red hair and kind eyes, but there was steel beneath her gentle demeanor. She sat with us at the dining room table, taking detailed notes as I told my story. She made some calls right there, her voice shifting into what Larry called her lawyer mode. Within hours, she'd filed paperwork with Child Protective Services and the guardianship authorities. They took over the case immediately. Abandoning your kid at an airport gets people's attention. A couple days later, Mom suggested we visit someone special. "There's someone who's been missing you like crazy," she said as we drove through familiar neighborhoods. "Someone who never stopped asking about you." When we pulled up to Grandpa Gray's house, my heart nearly stopped. It looked exactly the same: the yellow paint, the flower boxes in the windows, even the old porch swing where we used to sit and drink lemonade. The front door flew open before we even reached it. "Cam," Grandpa cried, and suddenly I was enveloped in one of his famous bear hugs, the kind that smelled like cinnamon and fresh laundry. "Oh, my sweet girl, let me look at you." We spent the afternoon looking through old photo albums, eating Grandpa's famous chocolate chip cookies, and catching up on lost time. He showed me the birthday cards he'd written but couldn't send, kept safe in a drawer along with newspaper clippings of my school's honor roll listings he'd saved. Days turned into weeks, and before I knew it, a month had passed. Dad and his perfect new family were still in Europe, living their best lives according to their social media posts. Every day, new photos would pop up on my feed: Carmen posing by the Eiffel Tower, Rocco at the Colosseum, Dad and Macy having romantic dinners in Paris. Not one of them tried to contact me. Not one message asking if I was safe, if I had somewhere to stay, if I was okay. Dad had my phone, my laptop, all my clothes, everything I owned except what I was wearing that day at the airport. But apparently, that didn't concern him at all. I'd log into my social media accounts from Mom's computer, and I could see they were all active. They'd post pictures, like other people's updates, comment on friends' posts. They could see I was online too. The little green dot next to my name made that clear. But nothing. Not even a single, "Hope you're alive," text. It was Mom's idea for me to be waiting at the house when they returned. I sat in the living room, my heart pounding as I heard the taxi pull up outside. Mom was hidden away in Dad's home office, waiting for the right moment. We could hear their voices through the front door, laughing and chattering about their amazing European adventure. The key turned in the lock, and they all burst in, loaded down with shopping bags and suitcases. They froze when they saw me sitting there. Well, Dad said, recovering quickly and plastering on a smug smile. "Look who found her way home." Macy chuckled, dropping their bags by the stairs. "See? We told you she'd be fine." That's when Mom stepped out of the office. The change in Dad's face was instant. His smug smile vanished, replaced by shock and then fury. "What the hell are you doing in my house?" he shrieked, backing up against Macy. Get out right now. Mom stood her ground, her voice calm but firm. I'm here to tell you how this is going to go, Keith. I'm taking Tam with me, permanently this time. I've already filed for full custody, and I'm suing for termination of your parental rights. The paperwork's already been filed with the court. Dad's face went white, then red. You can't do that. I can and I have, and that's not all. Mom's voice got harder. There's also the criminal charges for child endangerment. Abandoning a minor at an airport that carries serious jail time. For both of you. She looked pointedly at Macy. You, Dad's voice shook with rage. You think anyone will believe you after what you did to me? I still have pictures of my injuries. I'll tell everyone how you beat me. Mom actually smiled then, but it wasn't a happy smile. Go ahead. My lawyer's already prepared for that old lie. But here's the thing, Keith, you didn't file a police report right away. And now you've destroyed your own credibility when you abandoned our daughter at an airport. It's all on video. Every single second of you walking away, boarding that plane, enjoying your European vacation while our 15-year-old daughter was left alone without money, phone, or ID. What kind of father does that? Dad looked desperately at Macy, who seemed to be trying to fade into the background. No judge is going to believe your accusations now, Mom continued. Not after what you did, the social media posts showing you didn't even try to check if your daughter was safe. You showed your true colors, Keith, and now you're going to face the consequences. The trial went faster than any of us expected. Michelle said it was because the evidence was so overwhelming, the airport footage, the police report, the social media posts showing them gallivanting around Europe while I was abandoned. The judge didn't even need much time to make her decision. The alimony payments Mom had been making were terminated immediately. She was granted full custody of me, which honestly felt like just making official what we all already knew. I was never going back to that house. Dad and Macy got 1 year of probation each, plus a fine that made Macy's face go pale when the amount was announced. I didn't feel any satisfaction watching them squirm in their seats. I just felt nothing. It was like watching the end of a movie about someone else's life. That was 6 months ago. Now I'm sitting in my new room in Mom and Larry's apartment, trying to decide which earrings to wear to their wedding next month. Larry asked me to be his bridesman, and the suit we picked out is hanging on my closet door, pale blue, like the summer sky. I don't know what happened to Dad and his real family after the trial. They moved away somewhere. I heard that from Uncle Garcia, who along with most of Dad's relatives, surprisingly took our side when they learned what happened. Blood doesn't excuse what he did to you, Uncle Garcia had said firmly. Grandpa Gray comes over every Sunday for dinner now, always bringing his famous chocolate chip cookies and new stories about Mom's childhood that make her groan and me laugh. Sometimes we look through old photo albums together, but now we're making new memories too, filling up fresh pages with pictures of happy moments. I transferred to Riverside High after everything settled down. No way was I going to keep going to school with Rocco and Carmen. Turns out, it was the best decision ever. My new friends, especially Rex and Tilly, are the kind of real friends I never had at my old school. They don't know the whole story of why I transferred, but they know enough to understand why I sometimes get quiet when people talk about their dads. Sometimes I catch myself wondering about Dad, Macy, Rocco, and Carmen. But it's more like wondering about characters from a book I read long ago. There's a distance there, an unreality to those memories. I blocked them all on social media, not out of anger, but because I just don't need to know anymore. I'm done being the ghost in their perfect family photos. Mom says I'm stronger than she ever was at my age. Maybe she's right, but I think I'm just lucky. Lucky to have her, Larry, Grandpa Gray, and my little girl, and all the people who showed me what real family looks like, people who stand by you, who fight for you, who make sure you know your love. Make sure to like and subscribe.